Wow, have you ever really stopped to think about how we see? It's kind of wild when you break it down. Our eyes are taking in light, right? But then our brains, somehow, they turn that light into images. We don't just see light, we see a dog, a tree, we understand what we're looking at.
It is incredible. The entire process of vision, from the way our eyes focus light to how our brains interpret those signals, is incredibly complex.
It's mind-blowing. And you know what's even wilder? You asked us to look into this, right? And guess what we found? Richard Feynman, like the physics rock star himself, he dedicated a whole section of his famous lectures to this.
It's true, Feynman was captivated by vision, and he had this incredible way of explaining these really complex ideas and making them, well, understandable.
Totally. And one of the first things he dives into is this idea that we aren't just seeing a jumble of colors.
Yeah.
Our brains are taking all that light information and in an instant interpreting it. We're recognizing shapes, objects, the whole scene, everything.
Absolutely, and that's really key. Our eyes, especially the retina, they aren't just cameras passively recording. It's way more active than that. They're doing a ton of processing before any of that visual information even gets to the brain.
Hold on. So it's not like my brain is getting a live feed from my eyes. It's more like my eyes are sending an edited version.
That's a great way to put it. It's like a highlight reel, already prepped for the main event, which is your brain making sense of it all. And here's where it gets really interesting. Our brains are constantly making adjustments, considering the surrounding environment to help make sense of everything. Feynman uses this great example. He talks about the illusion of a blue shadow.
Wait, a blue shadow? How is that even possible? Shadows are gray, right?
Right, you'd think so, wouldn't you? It's a fantastic example of how our brains construct our visual reality. Imagine white light shining on a pink background. It creates a shadow, right?
Right. Got it.
Now, logically, that shadow should also appear white because it's being illuminated by that same white light.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But here's the thing. Because the shadow is surrounded by this pink, our brains, they see it as blue. It's a total illusion, a trick of the light, and how we perceive it.
Whoa, that's so trippy. It's like my eyes are messing with me.
In a way, they are. What we see isn't just about the light that's actually entering our eyes. It's about how our brain interprets it, too.
Wow. Makes you wonder what else your eyes are up to.
It really does. And this whole concept of interpretation, it even applies to something as fundamental as, color.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, think about how different light sources can make the same colors look completely different.
Ugh, don't even get me started. Like that shirt you buy at the store, the one that looks amazing under those fluorescent lights. But then you get it home, and in natural light, it's a totally different color. Disaster.
Exactly. Our brains are constantly adjusting to different lighting conditions, so we perceive colors consistently, even when the light around us changes. It's honestly remarkable how adaptable our vision is.
So our brains are practically doing magic tricks with how we see. But what about the eyes themselves? Feynman really gets into the nitty-gritty of how our eyes are built.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing.
It really is incredible. The human eye is this amazing product of evolution. It's full of these really elegant solutions, but then there are some things that make you scratch your head.
Totally. Like Feynman talks about the cornea, which is that clear outer layer of your eye. It does most of the focusing, right? It's like our eyes have a professional camera lens already built in.
Exactly. And it's even cooler than that. The cornea's curved shape. It actually counteracts something called spherical aberration. That's a type of distortion that would happen if the cornea was just a simple dome. Our vision would be blurry around the edges, but instead it's more like a super fancy spherical lens, just like you'd find in a really nice camera.
Okay, that's seriously cool. But then there's this other part that seems totally backwards, like almost a design flaw. Feynman talks about how the cells that actually detect the light-sensitive cells, they're at the back of the retina. So the light actually has to travel through a bunch of other cells before it even gets to the things that are supposed to be seeing it.
Yeah, it does seem kind of backwards, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Imagine building a house and running all the electrical wiring over the drywall instead of inside the walls.
Right, makes no sense.
But there's actually a reason for it. It all goes back to how evolution works,
So it's not like evolution had some master plan and was like, let's stick those light-sensitive cells way in the back just for fun.
Not quite. You have to remember, evolution can only work with what's already there. It's constantly tinkering, making small changes over millions of years. It builds on what came before, It can't just start from scratch.
Okay, that makes sense.
Well,
Still makes you wonder what other strange stuff might be hidden back there, though.
Feynman brings up this one example that's just Bizarre. It has to do with the iris, the color part of your eye.
Right, right. The iris, it controls how much light gets into your eye. It's like the aperture on a camera.
Exactly. Now, the iris has muscles that control it, and like everything else, those muscles are controlled by nerves.
Makes sense.
Here's the weird part. The nerve pathway that makes the iris contract, pretty straightforward.
Mm.
But the pathway that makes it expand, it takes this crazy detour. It goes all the way down into the spinal cord and then back up again.
Are you serious? Why would it do that? That's like taking a 10-mile detour to go across the street.
It does seem crazy inefficient, right? But
Yeah.
again, evolution doesn't always go for the most straightforward solution. Sometimes it's more about finding a solution that works, even if it seems a little wacky.
So we've got these incredible but super weird eyes. But it gets even crazier when you start looking at how other animals see the world. And Feynman takes us right to the bees, which, get this, they experience color completely differently than we do.
These are like the perfect example of how evolution tailors vision for a specific purpose. Like their whole world is bathed in ultraviolet light, which is a part of the electromagnetic spectrum that we can't even see.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me they can see things that are totally invisible to us?
Exactly. Think about it. You look out at a field of flowers, you see all these colors. But bees, they're seeing hidden patterns, secret markings created by the ultraviolet light reflecting off the petals. It's like they have a secret code book for nature.
So a flower that looks completely white to us, it could be like a giant welcome mat to a bee.
Exactly. These UV patterns are like neon signs pointing them toward the good stuff.
Yeah.
The nectar and the pollen. They're seeing a whole language of color that we're totally clueless about.
Wow. I'll never look at a daisy the same way again. But if bees can see ultraviolet, does that mean there are colors they can't see?
You got it.
Yeah.
Lots of red flowers, for example, they don't reflect a lot of ultraviolet light. So to a bee, they would look dark, almost black.
So that's why you don't see a ton of bees buzzing around those romantic red roses. It's all a sham. But wait, if bees can't see red, who are those flowers even for?
Good question. Turns out hummingbirds, they can see red really well, and they're actually important pollinators for some types of red flowers.
Okay, wait, so you're telling me there's a whole secret world of color out there that we're just missing out on. And the bees, they're tuned into it, using it to find the best flowers. Evolution is so cool, but how does this bee supervision even work? It can't just be about seeing ultraviolet light, right? Their brains have to be different too, don't they?
Well, it starts with their eyes. So our eyes, we have one lens, right? Bees, they have compound eyes. That means they have hundreds of tiny lenses all packed together. And each one of those tiny lenses has its own light-sensing cell called an ommatidium.
Hold on, so instead of one big lens like we have, they're rocking hundreds of little ones. That's wild.
It's a totally different way of seeing. Feynman explains that each of those ommatidia, it basically acts like a tiny fiber optic cable, channeling the light down to the bee's sensory cells. And remember how we were talking about resolution, the size of those ommatidia? That actually determines how clearly a bee can see.
Okay, I'm trying to imagine all those tiny lenses, all those little cables, but wouldn't that make their vision, like, super pixelated? It doesn't seem like a recipe for good vision.
You're right. Bees don't see with the same sharp resolution that we do. Feynman points out that there's this inherent trade-off. If you have smaller ommatidia, you get better resolution, but less light gets through. Larger ones, they gather more light, but then everything's blurrier.
So it's like choosing between a grainy low-light photo or a blurry bright one.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that evolution has favored a size for bee ommatidia that strikes a balance. It's not perfect for seeing fine details, but it's perfect for detecting movement, navigating through a busy environment, and of course, finding those ultraviolet patterns on flowers.
So it's not that our way of seeing is better. It's just that bees have evolved to see the world in a way that works for them, right? That's pretty awesome. Okay, give me more amazing animal vision facts. What else is out there?
Oh, there's plenty more. Remember how we were talking about the design of the human eye? With the light-sensitive cells at the back of the retina, the whole wiring over the drywall situation?
Yeah, hard to forget that one.
Well, Feynman ends with this mind-blowing example. The octopus. They actually evolved eyes that are incredibly similar to ours. They have a cornea, lens, iris, retina, the whole 9 yards.
Whoa, are you serious? Octopuses are like totally different from us.
It's a perfect example of what's called convergent evolution. That's when two completely different lineages end up with the same solution because, well, it works.
So octopuses were like, we'll take that eye design, please. It seems to be working out for those land mammals. But if their eyes are so similar, what's the big deal?
Here's the picker. The octopus eye. It actually improves on our backwards retina. In octopuses, the light-sensitive cells, they're at the front of the retina. It makes so much more sense.
Get out. So evolution was like, okay, got it now. Second try is the charm.
That's a great way to put it. It just goes to show that evolution isn't about finding the absolute perfect solution on the first try. It's about trying things out, experimenting, and sometimes, yes, stumbling upon an even better design down the line.
This whole deep dive has been full of surprises. We started with how we see, but we ended up learning about so much more than just eyes. It really makes you think about all the stuff we still don't know about our brains and how we experience the world. If vision is this complex and mysterious, just imagine what other secrets our senses are hiding. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dives. A huge thanks to Richard Feynman for taking us on this incredible journey into the world of vision. And to you, dear listeners, keep those questions coming because we'll be back soon with another fascinating topic to explore. Until then, stay curious.